1965, we had a war. 66, the rains failed. Abida, Mrs. Gandhi went to the United States. We imported 9 and 11 million tons of wheat. California hard red, which doesn't suit our stomachs now because wheat is not an indigenous Indian crop. Nevertheless, we imported it. It was all that stood between us and famine. And it came free of cost. We had to pay for the shipping. And Mrs. Gandhi, about her visit, an American newspaper, I still recall, wrote, "New Indian leader comes begging." You don't say things like that about the leader of India. That was in 1966. She came back and she told her principal secretary, he narrated this to me. He was my guru in many ways. And he said, she came back and told him that India will never beg for food again. I was humiliated. And then the country that used to hold out its hand and said, we are facing famine, now is the second largest producer of food in the world. So things changed. And in 1966, we were also told that at that time Lal Bahadur Shastri was the prime minister, said, don't eat on Mondays. You have to conserve cereals. And, again, this is forgotten. There are people who are of my age or perhaps a little younger will recall what a terrible time it was. And I, for 52 days, between 1966, मैं बहुत सोया. My mother, being a mother, used to say, "Beta khale." But I think my father told her कि ये देश से इतना प्यार करता है, ये नहीं खाएगा. I slept hungry 52 days, man, in the year. But that was it. Once a week, we were told, don't eat. Don't eat at night, but I just wouldn't eat through the day. It was just to save food. Save cereal. We didn't have enough. And then, of course, the Green Revolution and everything and everything. And criticize it as much as you want. But that was an awakening moment for India. For example, based on our telecom revolution, we are now talking about the digital world. 3/4 of my GDP comes from digital space. Have you any idea, ma'am, how many digital transactions we do every second in the country? We've just crossed, every second, we've just crossed 4,000. I repeat, 4,000 digital transactions every second. 95% in my own family, where my wife for 46 years and I, because our children don't live here, we are alone. 95% of our purchases are online, whether it's this company or that company or this zone or that zone or this cart or that cart. The supplies come immediately. And not only that, what we are noticing, that if the quality isn't good, they just take it back and replace it. So we are finding that very convenient because instead of my going to the store and then going from one store to the other, here I select, it saves on fuel for the country, saves on pollution because these guys come on their cycles or motorcycles or whatever. And so many people get employment, the motorcycle ride. Then on food, again, when my wife goes off to visit, to be with the ashram, my Gurudev's ashram, which is at a place called Chandigarh in the north of India, she spends some time there. So when I feel hungry, I can ring up that Zomato or Tomato or whatever it's called, Swiggy, whatever, and they bring me my food. And it's wholesome food, it's well cooked, and it's very affordable because it's not made by the central kitchen but by individuals. So again, you have employment generation. So all this is causing a revolution in India. What we call, everybody, those who came for the G20 plus a number of other countries, they want to understand India's jam trinity. J for Jandhan, A for Aadhaar, M for mobile. And they want to replicate. And we are teaching them. We say, we'll tell you how to do it. They talk of India's digital stack. Everything here is digital. There's a restaurant in the southern part of India where I haven't been, and I was told about the hundreds of dosas they serve every second because you move from table to table and you have to hit a button there in order to make the transfer digitally for the money. And so if you haven't made it, he'll skip the table and go to the next one. So you keep doing that, and he just keeps on the speed at which the fellow would operate. Placing dosas on both sides, and people eat them with great relish. And it's a very swift operation. So I believe this is the way to go, these new emerging technologies. Yes, people are now talking of artificial intelligence, which is a technology in search of a philosophy. But here again, India will lead the way. We'll show them that this technology, some are using it for not so good purposes, but India can take the lead and tell them that we are using this in the way it is meant to be used. It's meant to augment the capabilities of the human race, not to replace the capabilities of mankind, of humankind.